Ever get that feeling like you've already kind of sized someone up right away?
Oh, yeah.
Like you just know something about them?
Yeah.
Just from a glance or handshake or
Oh, absolutely.
how they order their coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out we're all kind of like these mini detectives,
Yeah.
constantly forming these first impressions.
Yeah.
But there's a catch.
Okay.
Research suggests these impressions can solidify in just a tenth of a second.
Wow.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into how these lightning-fast judgments work.
Okay.
And we're going to explore the quirks of the first impression bias
Right.
and the intriguing halo effect.
Interesting.
So get ready for some surprises,
All right.
because this stuff affects us way more than we realize.
I think you're right. It's truly fascinating how our brains are wired for efficiency,
Yeah.
But sometimes those shortcuts lead to some pretty interesting biases.
Yeah.
That first impression bias you mentioned,
Right.
like our mind's triage system in this chaotic world. We're just bombarded with information constantly.
Yeah.
So we try to categorize people quickly, often relying on the most readily available cues.
So it's less about us, being judgmental,
Right.
and more about our brains just trying to keep up with the pace of life, right?
Exactly.
But I'm guessing those snap judgments aren't always accurate.
Precisely. Think about a job interview.
Okay.
Let's say one candidate arrives looking polished and confident.
Yeah.
Answers smoothly, even throws in some well-placed humor.
Uh-huh.
Another candidate might be equally qualified,
Right.
but they're visibly nervous.
Yeah.
Their attire's a bit off, and their answers are a tad hesitant.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who often gets the benefit of the doubt, even if their actual skills are comparable?
Yeah. So it's not just about what you know.
Right.
It's how you package it in those first few minutes. Almost like a performance, which,
Yeah.
is a bit unfair to those who don't naturally shine right away.
Right.
Okay, so first impressions can be misleading.
Uh-huh.
What about this halo effect? It sounds kind of heavenly, but I have a feeling there's a twist.
The halo effect is a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
It's the tendency to generalize from one positive trait to a whole bunch of assumptions.
Okay.
Think about a brand like Apple, known for sleek design, innovative tech.
Mm-hmm.
This creates a halo where people assume all their products must be amazing even before trying them.
So it's like assuming someone who's really organized at work
Right.
must also be a fantastic cook and a great parent.
Exactly.
One good trait equals a whole bunch of assumed good traits, even if there's no proof.
Exactly. And it works the other way, too.
Oh.
If someone rubs you the wrong way initially,
Yeah.
you might unfairly assume other negative things about them.
Right.
It's like our brains love to create these simplified narratives, even if they're not based in reality.
So our brains are like storytellers.
Yeah.
Always looking for a through line, even if it means skipping a few chapters. But why does this happen?
Right.
Is it just human nature to judge a book by its cover?
Well, it's more nuanced than that. Okay.
Our brains are wired to use heuristics, mental shortcuts, to simplify decisions in a complex world.
Right.
These shortcuts help us function efficiently, but they can also lead to biases like the halo effect and the first impression bias.
So it's almost like a side effect of our brain's efficiency.
Precisely. And to make things even more interesting,
Yeah.
another bias that fuels the halo effect is confirmation bias.
Yeah.
We tend to seek out and favor information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs.
So if we think someone's intelligent based on their initial impression,
Right.
we're more likely to notice their witty remarks and downplay their occasional slip-ups.
Exactly.
It's like we're building a case to support our initial hunch, even if it's not totally accurate.
Yeah.
This is getting a bit mind-bending.
It can be a bit disorienting when you start to realize how much our brains are shaping our reality.
Yeah.
But the key is awareness.
Okay.
Once we recognize that these biases exist, we can start to question our own judgments.
And look for evidence beyond those initial impressions.
So it's like we need to become more mindful detectives,
Yeah.
looking for clues and evidence instead of just going with our gut feeling.
Right.
But can we ever truly overcome these biases, especially if they're so ingrained in how our brains work?
While we can't entirely rewire our brains,
Yeah.
we can definitely develop strategies for more objective thinking.
Okay.
Awareness is the first step,
Right.
followed by actively seeking diverse perspectives. Instead of just relying on your own impression, talk to others.
Yeah.
Get different opinions. Consider alternative viewpoints.
Okay.
This helps challenge assumptions and provides a more balanced view.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get trapped in our own heads and forget that other people might see things differently.
Right.
And I guess it's especially important when we're making important decisions like in a job interview or a performance review.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of real-world impact, how do these biases affect us in those situations?
The workplace is a prime example of where first impressions and the halo effect can have a big impact. As we've seen, a candidate's appearance, demeanor, and initial responses in an interview can unfairly sway hiring decisions.
It's almost like those first few minutes of the interview can make or break your chances.
Unfortunately, that can be the case.
Yeah.
And it's not just about qualifications, it's also about how you present yourself.
Yeah.
It can feel like a performance, which can be a disadvantage for those who are more substance than style.
So it's not just about what's on your resume, but how you package and present yourself.
Yes.
It almost feels like a performance sometimes.
Right.
But it's not just job interviews, is it?
No, it's not.
What about performance reviews?
Performance reviews are definitely susceptible to these biases as well.
Okay.
If a manager has a positive overall impression of an employee, they might unconsciously inflate their ratings across different performance categories,
Yeah.
even if the employee's actual performance is inconsistent.
The halo effect strikes again.
Right. It's like that one positive trait casts a shadow over everything else. But these biases aren't just limited to the professional world, are they?
No, they're not.
I'm guessing they show up in classrooms, too.
Yeah.
Do teachers fall prey to these biases as well?
Absolutely. The education system is another area where the first impression bias and the halo effect can have a profound impact.
Wow.
Research shows that teachers' initial impressions of students can influence how they interact with and support them throughout the school year.
So a teacher might perceive a student who is well-spoken and eager to participate
Right.
as being more intelligent, even if their academic performance doesn't necessarily reflect that.
Exactly. And conversely, a student who is shy or struggles to express themselves might be mistakenly perceived as less capable, even if they have a lot of potential.
That's concerning because it could lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Right.
where students who are perceived as bright get more attention and encouragement,
Yeah.
while those who are seen as struggling might receive less support. You've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
These biases can create an uneven playing field where some students benefit from positive perceptions while others face unnecessary obstacles.
It seems like we need to equip teachers with the tools and awareness to recognize and mitigate these biases.
I agree.
After all, every student deserves a fair chance to succeed, regardless of those initial impressions.
Well, absolutely.
But let's not forget, the power of marketing companies are masters at using these cognitive shortcuts, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Marketers are experts at leveraging the halo effect to shape consumer perceptions and build brand loyalty.
Right.
They understand that a positive association with one attribute, whether it's quality, style, or social responsibility, can create a halo that extends to the entire brand.
So when we see a celebrity endorsing a product,
Right.
our brains might unconsciously link their positive attributes to the brand itself.
That's a classic example.
Where?
We see a beloved athlete wearing a certain brand of sneakers, and we start to associate those sneakers with athleticism, success, and even coolness.
It's amazing how subtle these influences can be.
It is.
We might not even realize how much our purchasing decisions are being swayed by these unconscious associations.
Right.
But it goes beyond just celebrity endorsements, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Think about brand logos, packaging, and even the language used in advertising.
Yeah.
Every element is carefully crafted to evoke specific emotions and create a positive halo around the product.
So the next time we're browsing the aisles at the grocery store, we should be extra mindful of those shiny packages and catchy slogans.
Yeah.
They might be playing tricks on our brains.
It's not about being suspicious of every marketing tactic,
Right.
but it is about developing a healthy skepticism and recognizing that our perceptions aren't always objective.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of first impressions and the powerful cognitive biases that shape them.
Yeah.
It seems like these biases are so ingrained in our thinking that it's almost impossible to escape their influence entirely. But what are some practical steps we can take to become more aware and objective in our judgments?
Okay.
We've touched upon a few, but are there any other strategies that can help us break free from those snap judgments?
Well, you're right. These biases are deeply ingrained in how our brains process information.
Yeah.
making it a constant challenge to overcome them. But it's not an impossible task.
Good.
One powerful strategy we haven't discussed yet is to cultivate empathy.
Empathy. How does that play into making more objective judgments?
Empathy is about stepping outside of our own perspectives
Okay.
and trying to understand the world from someone else's point of view.
Great.
By making a conscious effort to consider another person's experiences,
Yeah.
background, and motivations, we can start to see beyond those superficial first impressions.
So instead of judging someone based on their appearance or a single interaction,
Right.
we should try to imagine what their life might be like, what challenges they might be facing, and what factors might be influencing their behavior.
Precisely, empathy allows us to connect with others on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And recognize that everyone has a story.
Right.
It encourages us to see beyond those initial snap judgments and approach people with more compassion and understanding.
That's a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
In a world that often feels divided and judgmental,
Right.
cultivating empathy could be a key to bridging those divides and fostering more meaningful connections.
I agree.
But what about those times when we're making decisions that require objectivity, like in a hiring process or when evaluating performance?
Right.
How can we balance empathy with the need for fairness and impartiality?
That's an excellent question. It's about finding that delicate balance. Empathy doesn't mean abandoning objective criteria or making excuses for poor performance. It's about recognizing that every individual is complex and deserves to be considered holistically.
Right.
In a hiring process, for example, empathy can help us understand a candidate's unique journey and appreciate their strengths and potential. Even if their resume isn't perfect or their interview skills are a bit rusty.
So it's about seeing the person behind the qualifications.
Yeah.
And recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer.
Absolutely. And in performance evaluations, empathy can help us provide more constructive feedback.
Okay.
Instead of simply pointing out shortcomings, we can try to understand the underlying reasons for those challenges and offer support and guidance for improvement.
It sounds like empathy can transform not only our judgments, but also our interactions.
Yes.
Making us more compassionate leaders, colleagues, and friends.
I agree.
But it's not always easy to put empathy into practice, especially when we're under pressure or dealing with difficult situations. What are some practical tips for cultivating empathy in our daily lives?
That's a great point. It takes conscious effort to cultivate empathy,
Right.
but it's a skill that can be developed with practice.
Okay.
One helpful tip is to simply start by listening more attentively to others. Instead of just waiting for your turn to speak, truly focus on what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
So it's about paying attention not just to the words, but also to the emotions and the unspoken messages.
Exactly. And as you listen, try to ask open-ended questions that encourage the other person to share their perspective and experiences.
Right.
Resist the urge to interrupt or offer solutions prematurely. Sometimes people just need to feel heard and understood.
That's a valuable reminder.
Yeah.
We often rush to offer advice or fix problems.
Right.
When what people really need is a compassionate ear.
Exactly.
What else can we do?
Another powerful practice is to expose yourself to diverse perspectives. Read books, watch documentaries, and engage in conversations with people from different backgrounds and walks of life. The more you expand your understanding of the world, the more easily you'll be able to empathize with others.
It's about breaking out of our own echo chambers and challenging our assumptions. The more we learn about other people's experiences, the more we realize that we're all connected in some way.
Precisely. And as you engage with diverse perspectives, try to practice perspective taking.
Okay.
Imagine yourself in another person's shoes.
Right.
What would it be like to walk through the world with their experiences, beliefs, and challenges?
Yeah.
This mental exercise can help you develop a deeper understanding and appreciation for others.
It sounds like cultivating empathy is an ongoing journey of self-discovery and connection.
I think it is.
It's about opening our hearts and minds to the richness and complexity of the human experience. But let's bring this back to the topic of first impressions.
Okay.
How can empathy help us navigate those initial encounters and avoid those snap judgments that can lead to misunderstandings?
When we meet someone for the first time, it's easy to get caught up in those initial impressions, their appearance, their demeanor, their first few words.
Right.
But empathy encourages us to pause, take a breath, and recognize that there's more to this person than what meets the eye.
So instead of immediately labeling someone as confident or awkward or successful or struggling, we should try to see them as an individual with a unique story that we're just beginning to uncover.
Exactly. And as you interact with this person, try to be curious.
Okay.
Ask open-ended questions.
Yeah.
Listen attentively to their responses.
Yeah.
And seek to understand their perspective.
Right.
You might be surprised by what you learn and how those initial impressions start to shift.
It's about approaching each encounter with a sense of wonder and openness.
Yeah.
Rather than preconceived notions.
I agree.
But let's be realistic. We're all human, and we're going to make snap judgments sometimes.
Right.
It's almost instinctual.
Uh-huh.
So what can we do when we catch ourselves falling into that trap?
That's a great point. We're not going to be perfect at this.
Right.
The key is to cultivate self-awareness.
Okay.
When you notice yourself making a snap judgment, pause and ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this judgment?
Right.
Am I letting my biases influence my perception?
So it's about challenging those automatic thoughts and looking for the evidence, just like a detective.
Precisely. And if you realize that your judgment is based on limited or biased information, make a conscious effort to gather more data.
Okay.
Talk to the person. Learn more about their background. And seek out different perspectives.
It sounds like we need to become more mindful of our own thought processes.
Yeah.
And develop the habit of questioning our assumptions.
Right.
But what about those situations where we're dealing with someone who has a strong negative first impression on us? Maybe they're rude or arrogant or just rub us the wrong way.
Okay.
How can empathy help us navigate those tricky encounters?
That's a great question because it highlights the true power of empathy.
Okay.
When we encounter someone who triggers negative feelings in us, it's natural to want to withdraw, avoid, or even retaliate.
Right.
But empathy challenges us to take a different approach. It asks us to consider what might be driving that person's behavior.
So instead of judging them as simply a jerk,
right,
we should try to understand what might be going on beneath the surface. Maybe they're having a bad day, or they're dealing with personal struggles, or they've been hurt in the past and built up defenses.
Remember, everyone is carrying around their own baggage, their own wounds, their own stories.
Yeah.
And sometimes those difficult behaviors are just a way of protecting themselves.
Right.
Now, empathy doesn't mean condoning bad behavior or allowing yourself to be mistreated.
Right.
It's about understanding that people's actions are often driven by deeper needs and motivations.
So it's about recognizing that there's a human being behind the difficult exterior.
Yes.
Even if we don't particularly like their behavior.
Precisely. And by approaching those challenging encounters with empathy,
Yeah.
we might be surprised by how the dynamic shifts.
Okay.
We might not become best friends with that person, but we can at least create a space for more understanding and respectful interaction.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's easy to write someone off based on a negative first impression.
Right.
But by tapping into empathy, we can open ourselves up to the possibility of connection, even in unexpected places.
I think so.
This has been incredibly eye-opening.
Yeah.
We've seen how these seemingly innocent biases can have far-reaching consequences in our personal and professional lives.
Right.
But we've also explored some powerful strategies for mitigating those biases and making more objective judgments.
Right.
But before we dive into the final part of our exploration,
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to add about the importance of empathy
Yeah.
in navigating the world of first impressions.
You know, it's not just about being more understanding of others.
Okay.
Understanding these biases can also help us become more aware of how we're presenting ourselves to the world.
Well, that's interesting. You mean understanding how others perceive us can help us shape our own first impressions?
Absolutely. Think about it.
Right.
Knowing that people tend to make snap judgments based on appearance, body language, and initial interactions can empower us to take control of those first impressions.
Okay.
We can be more mindful of how we dress, how we carry ourselves, and how we communicate.
Yeah.
Especially in professional settings or when meeting new people.
So it's like we're all actors on a stage to some extent.
Right.
Especially in those first encounters.
Yeah.
But it's not about being fake or inauthentic.
Right.
It's about being aware of the signals we're sending.
Right.
And making sure they align with how we want to be perceived.
Exactly. It's about putting our best foot forward while still being true to ourselves. And it's not just about appearance.
Right.
It's also about the energy we project.
Yeah.
Our tone of voice, our listening skills, all those subtle cues that contribute to that first impression.
This is making me think about all those times I've felt self-conscious or awkward in social situations. Maybe I stumbled over my words, or I couldn't make eye contact, or I just felt like I wasn't coming across the way I wanted to. Now I'm realizing that those feelings of discomfort might have been amplified by my own awareness of the first impression bias.
It's very possible we all experience those moments of self-doubt,
Yeah.
especially in unfamiliar settings.
Right.
But the good news is that understanding these biases can help us reframe those experiences.
Okay.
Instead of getting caught up in our own anxieties, we can focus on projecting warmth, authenticity, and genuine interest in the other person.
So it's about shifting our focus from our own insecurities to connecting with the other person.
Yes.
It's almost we're taking the spotlight off ourselves and shining it on them.
That's a great analogy. And remember, everyone feels a little awkward or nervous in social situations from time to time.
Yeah.
It's a normal human experience.
Right.
By acknowledging that shared vulnerability, we can approach those interactions with more empathy and compassion, both for ourselves and for the other person.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on first impressions. It's not just about making a good impression on others.
Right.
It's also about understanding how those impressions are shaping our own experiences and interactions. It's almost like a two-way street.
Precisely. It's a reciprocal process.
Right.
And the more we understand the dynamics at play, the more skillfully we can navigate those first encounters and build stronger, more authentic connections.
I'm already starting to feel more empowered.
Good.
Like I have more control over how I present myself to the world.
Yeah.
But let's get even more practical.
Okay.
If we're going to make a positive first impression, are there any specific tips or strategies we can focus on?
Absolutely. Let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Body language is key.
Right.
Stand tall, make eye contact, and offer a firm handshake. These nonverbal cues convey confidence and approachability.
So it's about projecting an image of openness and engagement, even if we're feeling a bit nervous inside.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of a smile. A genuine smile can instantly make you seem more likable and trustworthy.
Smiling is like a universal language of friendliness.
It is.
It can instantly disarm people and create a sense of warmth.
Yeah.
What about our attire? Does what we wear really matter that much?
It does play a role, especially in professional settings.
Okay.
Dressing appropriately for the occasion shows respect for the other person and conveys that you take the situation seriously.
Right.
Now, this doesn't mean you have to wear a suit to every meeting.
Yeah.
But it does mean paying attention to the dress code.
Right.
And making an effort to present yourself in a polished and professional manner.
So it's about finding that balance between looking professional and still feeling authentic to our personal style.
That's the sweet spot. And don't forget the importance of active listening.
Okay.
When you're engaged in a conversation, really focus on what the other person is saying.
Right.
Make eye contact, nod your head, and ask clarifying questions.
Yeah.
This shows that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say and that you value their perspective.
Active listening is such a crucial skill.
It is.
But it's often overlooked.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts or to be distracted by our phones.
Right.
But when we truly listen to someone, we're showing them respect and creating a space for connection.
Yes.
What about small talk? I know some people dread it.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's an unavoidable part of social interactions.
Small talk can feel superficial, but it serves an important purpose. It's a way to break the ice, find common ground, and establish rapport.
Right.
Think of it as a bridge to deeper conversation. So don't be afraid to engage in those lighthearted exchanges about the weather, current events, or shared interests.
And if we're feeling a bit tongue-tied,
Yeah.
remember that most people appreciate a good listener more than a brilliant conversationalist.
Right.
Just be present, ask questions, and show genuine interest in the other person.
Absolutely.
But what about those times when we make a faux pas? Maybe we say something awkward or accidentally offend someone.
Yeah.
How can we recover from those social blunders and salvage that first impression?
We all make mistakes. It's part of being human.
Right.
The key is to handle those blunders with grace and humility.
Okay.
If you realize you've said something inappropriate, don't try to ignore it or pretend it didn't happen.
Right.
Instead, acknowledge the mistake, apologize sincerely, and move on.
So it's about taking ownership of our actions and showing that we're willing to learn from our mistakes.
Exactly, and don't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Everyone has those moments of social awkwardness.
Yeah.
The important thing is to learn from those experiences and use them as an opportunity to grow.
It's like we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
Constantly evolving and learning how to navigate the social world more effectively.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit. We've been talking a lot about in-person interactions. But what about the digital world?
Yeah.
First impressions are just as important online, aren't they?
Absolutely. In today's digital age, our online presence is often the first impression we make on others.
Right.
Think about your social media profiles, your professional networking sites, even your email signature.
Yeah.
These digital touch points are shaping how people perceive you even before you've had a chance to interact in person.
It's like we're all curating our own personal brands online, whether we realize it or not,
Right.
but it can feel overwhelming, like we have to be perfect in every digital space.
Yeah.
How can we manage those online first impressions without feeling like we're putting on a facade?
The key is authenticity.
Okay.
Yes, you want to present yourself in a positive light,
Right.
but it's important to be genuine and true to who you are.
Hmm.
Don't try to be someone you're not, or
Yeah.
create a persona that doesn't align with your values and personality.
Right.
People can spot inauthenticity a mile away, both online and offline.
So it's about finding that balance
Mhm.
between showcasing our strengths and accomplishments
Yeah.
while still being relatable and human.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, it's not just about what you post.
Right.
It's also about how you interact with others online.
Okay.
Be respectful,
Mm-hmm.
engage in thoughtful conversations,
Right.
and avoid negativity or drama.
Yeah.
Your online behavior is just as important as your profile picture or bio.
Like we're all ambassadors for our own personal brands online.
Right.
Every interaction, every comment,
Uh-huh.
every like or share is contributing to that overall impression.
Yeah.
But let's get specific. What are some practical tips for creating a more positive first impression online?
Let's start with your profile picture.
Okay.
Choose a photo that's clear, professional, and approachable.
Mhm.
A genuine smile goes a long way.
Right.
And make sure your profile is up to date
Okay.
and reflects your current interests and experiences.
It's like we're creating a digital snapshot of who we are.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure it's a flattering and accurate representation.
Right.
What about our bios or summaries on social media or professional networking sites?
Use those spaces to highlight your key skills, experiences, and passions.
Okay.
Keep it concise and engaging, and don't be afraid to inject a little personality.
Right.
But avoid using jargon or buzzwords that might alienate potential connections.
It's like we're crafting our own personal elevator pitch,
Yeah.
but we want to make sure it's authentic and relatable.
Uh-huh.
What about our content? What kind of posts or updates should we be sharing online?
Share content that's relevant to your interests and expertise.
Okay.
Think about what value you can provide to your audience,
Yep.
but don't just broadcast your own accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
Engage with others, comment on their posts,
Yeah.
and participate in meaningful conversations.
So it's about creating a two-way dialogue, not just a one-sided monologue.
Exactly. And remember, quality over quantity.
Okay.
It's better to share a few well-crafted posts than to bombard your followers with irrelevant or low-quality content.
This is making me think about all the different ways we're making first impressions online. From our dating profiles to our job applications to our social media interactions.
Right.
It's almost like we're constantly auditioning for the world, even when we're just scrolling through our feeds.
It's true. The digital world has blurred the lines between our personal and professional lives.
Yeah.
And while it can feel like a lot of pressure to be on all the time, it also presents incredible opportunities for connection and collaboration.
So it's about finding that balance between being strategic about our online presence
Yeah.
while still being authentic and true to ourselves.
Right.
It's about showcasing our best selves without feeling like we have to be perfect or pretend to be someone we're not.
That's a great way to summarize it. And remember, first impressions,
Right.
whether online or offline, are just the starting point.
Really?
They're an opportunity to spark curiosity,
Mhm.
build rapport, and create connections. But the real magic happens when we move beyond those initial judgments
Right.
and start to engage with each other on a deeper, more meaningful level.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the fascinating world of first impressions.
Yeah, it has.
We've learned that these snap judgments are often driven by unconscious biases,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have the power to shape those impressions and create more authentic connections,
Right.
whether we're meeting someone for the first time or navigating the digital landscape.
Yeah.
Empathy, awareness, and a genuine desire to connect can help us make those first encounters count.
I agree.
But as we wrap up this part of our exploration, I'm wondering,
Okay.
what are some common misconceptions about first impressions that you'd like to debunk?
All right.
What are some myths that we need to let go of?
Well, that's a great question. There are definitely a few misconceptions that tend to circulate.
Okay.
One common myth is that you only get one chance to make a first impression.
So if we mess up that first encounter, it's all over.
Right.
There's no hope for redemption.
Not at all.
Okay.
While first impressions are important, they're not always set in stone.
Right.
People are capable of changing their minds,
Okay.
especially if you demonstrate growth, authenticity, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes.
So it's about focusing on the long game, not just that initial interaction.
Exactly.
It's about building trust and rapport over time, even if that first encounter wasn't perfect.
Right. And remember, relationships are dynamic.
Okay.
They evolve and deepen over time. Don't let a single interaction define your entire connection with someone.
That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
Another common misconception is that first impressions are all about superficial qualities,
Right.
like appearance or charisma.
Yeah.
But is it really all about those surface-level traits?
While those initial visual cues can certainly play a role,
Right.
first impressions are also shaped by subtle factors like body language, tone of voice,
Yeah.
and even the energy we project.
Okay.
And as we get to know someone better, those deeper qualities like integrity, empathy, and intelligence start to take center stage.
So it's not just about looking good, it's about being good.
That's beautifully said.
It's about cultivating those inner qualities that truly make us shine.
And those deeper qualities are what create lasting impressions.
Right.
They're the foundation for strong, meaningful relationships.
This is making me think about all those times I've judged someone based on a first impression,
Yeah.
only to discover later that they were completely different than I initially thought.
Right.
It's a reminder that we should always give people the benefit of the doubt and be open to changing our minds.
Absolutely. It's about approaching every interaction with curiosity and a willingness to see beyond those surface-level judgments.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening discussion.
It has.
We've debunked some common myths, explored the hidden forces that shape our perceptions, and discovered the power of empathy to transform our interactions.
Yeah.
But as we move towards the final part of our deep dive, I'm wondering, are there any other misconceptions or myths about first impressions that we need to address? What other insights can help our listeners navigate this complex social landscape?
You're right, there's always more to uncover. One persistent myth is that extroverts have a natural advantage when it comes to first impressions.
So if we're not naturally outgoing or charismatic, we're doomed to make a bad first impression.
Not at all. While extroverts might feel more comfortable in social situations, introverts can be just as successful at creating positive first impressions. It's about finding your own authentic way to connect with others.
So it's not about trying to force ourselves to be someone we're not. It's about embracing our own unique strengths and personality.
Exactly. Introverts often bring valuable qualities to interactions, such as thoughtful listening, insightful observations, and a genuine interest in others.
It's about recognizing that there's no one right way to make a good first impression.
I agree.
It's about being true to ourselves and finding our own unique style of connecting with others.
That's a wonderful insight. And remember, authenticity is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are genuine and comfortable in their own skin.
This is making me think about all the different ways we can make a positive first impression. Regardless of our personality type. It could be through a warm smile, a thoughtful question, a genuine compliment, or even just a quiet attentiveness.
You've hit on a key point.
Yeah.
First impressions are about more than just grand gestures or witty remarks.
Right.
It's often those small, subtle acts of kindness and connection that truly resonate with people.
It's about those little moments of human connection that can spark a conversation.
Yeah.
Brighten someone's day, and even plant the seeds of a lasting relationship.
Beautifully said, and those moments can happen anywhere, anytime.
Right.
Whether we're waiting in line at the coffee shop, attending a networking event, or simply scrolling through our social media feeds.
It's about being present, being open, and being willing to connect with the world around us.
I agree.
But as we prepare to wrap up this deep dive, I'm wondering, are there any final insights or takeaways you'd like to share with our listeners? What are some key principles they can embrace to navigate the world of first impressions with more confidence and authenticity?
I'm so glad you asked. First and foremost, I want to emphasize that first impressions are a two-way street. It's not just about how we perceive others. It's also about how we present ourselves to the world.
So it's about taking ownership of our own first impressions. And recognizing that we have the power to shape those perceptions.
Exactly. We can be more mindful of our body language, our attire, our online presence, and even the energy we project.
It's about being intentional about the image we're creating.
Right.
And making sure it aligns with how we want to be perceived.
And as we cultivate this awareness,
Yeah.
remember that empathy is your superpower.
Right.
It allows you to connect with others on a deeper level. See beyond those superficial judgment and approach every interaction with more compassion and understanding.
Empathy seems to be the golden thread that weaves through all these insights.
It is.
It's the key to unlocking more authentic connections,
Yeah.
building stronger relationships,
Right.
and navigating the complex social landscape with more grace and understanding.
Right.
But as we prepare to conclude this deep dive, I'm wondering if there's one final piece of advice, a parting thought that you'd like to leave our listeners with.
All right.
What's the one thing you hope they'll remember long after this conversation is over?
That's a wonderful question. If I could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom, it would be this.
Okay.
Embrace the beauty of imperfection.
The beauty of imperfection.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing thought.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
We live in a world that often celebrates perfection, flawlessness, and the curated highlight reel. But the truth is, we're all perfectly imperfect.
Right.
We stumble, we falter, we make mistakes, and that's okay.
So it's about letting go of the pressure to be perfect and embracing our authentic selves, flaws and all.
Exactly. And when we embrace our own imperfections, we create space for others to do the same. We foster an environment of acceptance, vulnerability, and genuine connection.
It's like we're giving ourselves and others permission to be human with all our quirks and complexities.
Yes.
And when we do that, we open ourselves up to more authentic and meaningful relationships.
Precisely. And those connections, those moments of shared humanity, are what truly enrich our lives.
This has been an incredibly insightful and empowering journey into the world of first impressions.
Yeah, it has.
We've explored the science behind those snap judgments, the power of empathy to transform our interactions, and the importance of embracing our own imperfections.
Absolutely.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I love a good challenge. What is it?
Now that you're armed with this knowledge, go out there and make some memorable first impressions.
I love it.
Embrace your imperfections, cultivate empathy, and let your unique personality shine through.
That's a fantastic challenge. I encourage everyone to embrace it.
All right.
And remember, first impressions are just the beginning.
Right.
The real magic happens when we move beyond those initial judgments.
Yeah.
And start to build deeper, more meaningful connections.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the fascinating world of first impressions.
It was my pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey and learned some valuable insights along the way.
I hope so too.
Until next time, keep those first impressions authentic.
Yes.
Keep those connections genuine and keep exploring the amazing complexity of human interaction.